In the very first episode of Akame ga Kill, Akame attempts to kill Tatsumi by stabbing him in the chest. You may not realize this, but this is very subtle foreshadowing of the fact that Tatsumi is not the main character. Akame ga Kill, baby's first edgy anime. You probably watched this when you were like 14 and thought it was the greatest thing ever. You didn't want to watch your Narutos and your One Pieces anymore. You found something cooler, something deep, something you thought was for mature minds only, and then went on to adapt that to your personality. Bonus points if you watch this and Future Diary around the same time. To simply put, Akame ga Kill is not good. Like, it is really not good. And if anyone tells you that it is, they are probably talking out of nostalgia and seriously need to give the series a rewatch. When you ask anyone what the anime is about, more often than not, the first replies you'll get is, "Hey, isn't that the anime where everyone dies?" And that's pretty much its identity. And they aren't really saying it as a praise. Akame ga Kill tries too hard to be serious and mature with its story and themes, but is executed so badly that it comes off as being written by a 13-year-old who just discovered they could write for the first time ever. A protagonist with a strong sense of justice leaves his poor village to move to the Empire where he can find work and send money back to his village. But oh no, turns out the Empire is actually a shitty place where those in power are super shitty and make the life of the common folk as miserable as possible. Almost like real life. And to add tension to things, there's a group of assassins that go around killing all the shitty people in power. You see, even though the assassins do a lot of killing, they're actually the good guys because they only kill the bad guys. The bad guys who torture and kill the innocents for their pleasure. But oh no, the good guys actually see themselves as the bad guys because no matter how you slice it, all they're doing is killing. And killing is bad. Herein lies the first problem I have with the anime. The way it portrays killing. When the bad guys kill, it's bad. And when the good guys kill, they kill because they have to. Looks good on paper, but it doesn't exactly work. At first they tried to make Ninth Raid look all morally grey by denouncing murder and going on about their fans being forced. They are ready for death, which could strike whenever. But it throws that out the window when the bad guys themselves are just the absolute worst humanity has to offer. This has the characters feeling pretentious. And speaking of characters, most of the characters of Akame ga Kill are some of the blandest characters you will ever know in fiction. Like, we have Tatsumi, our main character and jack of all trades, who has a pure sense of justice and only wants to do good and save the innocent. He's a Gary Stu true and true. Then we have Mine, who is the tsundere and kind of hates Tatsumi but actually kind of likes him, which leads to them getting together towards the end, which is kind of nice. And then we have Lubbock, who is a pervert. He does like their boss, but like, he still wants to peep at ladies, so like, this man ain't loyal. Then there's Blatt, who is like the big brother type. He's a pretty good guy, but then you realize he serves two purposes. One is to train and inspire the main character, and two is to be the butt of really bad gay jokes. Then there's our titular Akame, who is the serious and oblivious one who takes everything a bit too literal. Her only other quirk is that she eats a lot, which is where a lot of her jokes come from. I'll get more into the jokes later. The only praise I can give the anime is in its character designs, which are really solid and stand out, making them pretty iconic. But then it ends up being a double-edged sword. Most of the characters don't feel like characters, but more like plot devices and exposition dumps. Half of the time their dialogue involves explaining something to someone, and in most cases it's someone who already knows that thing too. And in worst cases they are explaining to literally nobody but the audience. Like in the first few episodes, our protagonists are carrying out a mission where they show off their cool weapons called Imperial Arms. Each of them shows off their abilities, followed by explanation on how those abilities work. Like there's Mine, whose whole gimmick is that her weapon gets stronger the more she's at a disadvantage, which is a pretty cool idea. But you know who she's explaining this to? Her own teammate, Sheel. Or is it Shell? Sheila? Zila? Well, Sheel already knows how it works, so this feels pointless. She's just looking at us, the audience, and saying, "Hey guys, check out how my gun works." And she does this a lot too. In another episode, she completely disintegrates her opponent and then goes on to explain her abilities. Again. Who are you talking to, please? His ashes? And she's always reminding us whenever she's in a fight that whenever she's in a pinch, her weapon gets stronger. Still on the topic of Imperial Arms, there's a little nitpick I have about them. It feels like they were designed with certain characters in mind. Like take the character of Leone for example, whose weapon is called Lionel, and it gives her the properties of a lion, with increased strength and regeneration. But tell me, what are the odds a character named Leone would have a weapon called Lionel? The same could be said about Shield, whose weapon has a panda engraved on it. It really feeds into her whole Asian motif. In fact, she grew up in the little Chinatown of the Empire, so it's all part of her, which is why it looks incredibly awkward when some other guy wields the pair of scissors and it just doesn't fit him. And then there's Bulat and his Imperial Arms Incursio. When you look at Incursio and then you look at Bulat, you realize that Incursio's color scheme doesn't exactly fit Bulat's own, so it's just slightly off. But then it hits you. Incursio was meant for Tatsumi all along. Its primary white design fits Tatsumi's primary white design too well. Even the weapon in its untransformed form is a sword that looks exactly like Tatsumi's sword. A sword, mind you, that we don't see until the episode Bulat dies. Man, Tatsumi has a lot of plot armor that takes him to the last episode. I know who else has plot armor? The villains, which are also one note like the protagonist, and there are a lot of missed potentials with them. There's Bowles, who is like the best written bad guy. He knows the Empire is bad. He knows he's done shitty stuff. He joined Esdeath's team because he believed that by doing good to keep the actual good people in the Empire and his family safe, he's also atoning for his crimes. There's a lot of potential in this character and he's the closest thing to a morally grey character the anime has. Too bad he dies by the hands of the good guys. And now I have to talk about the deaths. The deaths are some of the cheapest I have ever seen in an anime. Like, take the first death, which is Shield. Her and mine are up against someone who's fairly inexperienced compared to them. This bitch right here and her stupid ass dog. Shield, who we learn from her backstory, is an incredibly skilled killer, so when it comes to killing this bitch, she has several chances to kill her, but all she does is cut up her arms twice. And then when mine gets captured by the dog, the only thing Shield needed to do was just kill the user right there, as they themselves already established to us that by killing the user, the Imperial Arms stops immediately. But what does she do? She runs back to go save mine, which in turn leads to her mess up, leading her dead. You see how cheap this is, right? And you can see the deaths coming a mile away. If a character begins to get a lot more screen time with a backstory, chances are they are going to die in that same episode. And it's not restricted to just the good guys, as the bad guys too do have their own moments. This is like the same thing that happens in Demon Slayer, where in order to drum up sympathy for a character, especially the demons, you see their backstory before they die. And like Demon Slayer, it gets incredibly repetitive and predictable. The character deaths only gets worse from here. There's the newcomer Chelsea, who from her introduction already raises a lot of death flags. She's on about how the reason Shield and Bulat had died was because they were too soft, only for her to immediately warm up to the group, get soft, and then randomly get feelings for Tatsumi for no other reason aside from the fact that he is Tatsumi. And the funny thing is, she dies not because she was trying to look out for the others or because she got soft, she dies because she got greedy and overconfident. She already killed one of them, which was more than enough. Her killing method is also very unnecessary too. Like, why do you have to use a needle when you could just carry a gun? Then we have Lubbock's death, who after being the least developed character, whose only presence was relegated to comic relief, when he does finally get to show off what he's really made of, he dies. But I think the absolute worst death would be that of Leone. Leone's death was one that was just felt like, hey man, we need to meet our death quota, nobody has died yet, so she just dies in like the worst way ever, randomly, and after that, she doesn't really die. It's like a fake out where she gets shot in the chest multiple times, but then she looks pretty fine after all that, only for her to go to some closed off location and just die there, just like that. And we can't forget about Tatsumi's death. The death that hit us completely out of nowhere more than the rest of the other characters' deaths. Like, we just watched him go Super Saiyan and fight to his final stand against a huge fucking mech, shooting fucking laser beams everywhere, and he manages to survive only to sacrifice himself to save a bunch of civilians that didn't mean shit. If it's one thing this death left us with, was making us realize why the show was called Akame ga Kill and not Tatsumi ga Kill. The anime was a huge fucking mess, and this was especially apparent around the middle of the anime's run, where it just felt like they were doing whatever. Like, one minute they had to kill somebody who was killing other people, another minute they had to deal with their religion, and it was just super forgettable. Like, I just finished watching it and I don't even remember what the middle section of the whole anime was about. But by far the most egregious thing this anime tried to do was be funny. It tries so hard to mix comedy and darkness together to make like dark jokes, but it's not funny at all and just has you rolling your eyes. Like take the very first episode where Tatsumi just found out his friends are dead. He's seen their dead bodies and he's just killed the person that killed his friends. So while he's grieving, you know what happens? They just whisk him away and take him to their secret hideout while he's struggling and trying to make it look all funny and stuff. It was not funny, and it happens again in the next episode. He's at their graves, grieving. But you know what time it is? Boob joke time. Like, it is stark contrast and just ruins everything. It ruins everything. It's not good at all. And I can't forget about how the anime tries to make a joke of gay people. When they introduce Bulat, the line that follows with his introduction is, "By the way, he's gay," to which Tatsumi reacts with, "Ugh, he's gay." Like, this is so distasteful and this happens a lot. Tatsumi catches himself thinking of Bulat and he immediately stops himself, kind of worried that he might be turning gay, or oh no, Bulat might be trying to make moves on me. Like, why? And Bulat isn't the only one at the back end of these jokes, as there is another character who is openly gay, a mad scientist on the bad guy's side, and when he's introduced as being gay, the other characters are clearly uncomfortable about it. It's just really bad, and jokes like that would not fly today at all. Akame ga Kill was an adaptation that took way too many liberties with its anime original ending, and people tend to wish for a remake because of that. But I don't think remaking this anime would make it any better, because the problem I had with it still comes from the stuff that was adapted from the manga but made worse with the anime's original ending. But if the stuff the anime did adapt are still bad, why would the manga be any better? Sure, it might be uncensored with a lot more gore, but I bet you it still follows the same predictable patterns it's had since the beginning. Besides, do you really want a modern adaptation of the anime with really bad modern censorship? I don't think so. So let it just remain as it is. And this is when this video comes to an end. Most of it was unscripted, which is why some parts might have sounded a bit rough. I was just trying something out with this. And if you would like to see more rants like this, let me know in the comments below, as well as what you think about Akame ga Kill. This has been your very favorite slice of bread. Stay toasty.